Hello my lovelies! Thank you so much for watching. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Allison Dorsey. This is Allie's Super Short Show. Today's episode was suggested by subscriber G. Ann Madden. If you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below or at me on Twitter. Today, we're going to talk about a story of intrigue, espionage, and sibling rivalry like no other. Every little girl dreams of becoming a princess, but they might not if they knew the story of Mary, Queen of Scots. The year is 1587, and on a cold, wet morning in England, the Queen of Scotland was beheaded. 44 years earlier, Mary Stuart was born in Scotland to King James V and his wife Mary of Guise. The young king was only 30 years old when he died of a fever. His infant daughter was his only heir, and she was crowned queen at just 10 months old. Unable to rule and afraid for her daughter's safety, the queen mother packed up her baby and moved to France. There, Mary would learn all the subjects a young queen would need to know. By all accounts, she was quite talented in every subject, and charming and perfectly mannered. It was said she was quite beautiful as well, with auburn hair and hazel eyes. Mary even fell in love with the boy king of France while she was there. His name was Francis II. By all accounts, they had a pleasant marriage, which unfortunately ended in tragedy when he died of an ear infection at the tender age of 16. Having learned all she could during her time in court, and having nothing left for her there, Mary decided it was time for her to take back control of her own country. She moved back to Scotland at just 18 years old. While all of her country noble lords squabbled amongst themselves, Mary had another rivalry brewing just to the south. Sitting on the English throne was Queen Elizabeth I. Some reports say they were half-sisters, others say that they were cousins. It's hard for me to tell as the entire royal family was a very small pool at the time and I am not a historian. The relationship between the two queens was amicable at first, if not wary on the part of Queen Elizabeth, who was slightly older and had chosen to never marry. She would produce no heirs. They wrote each other letters often and would even send extravagant gifts. Their relationship changed, however, when Mary fell in love again. She married her first cousin, Henry Stuart, Lord of Darnley. This was taken badly by Queen Elizabeth because it strengthened Mary's claim to the English throne. Elizabeth began to become paranoid that Mary would try to take her throne during her lifetime. Some historians believe this marriage was the beginning of the end for Mary, Queen of Scots. As in love as the young queen was, those feelings quickly turned to resentment after the wedding. Henry, Lord Darnley, hid his true nature during the courtship, but now the queen learned that he was a violent drunkard. He resented his title of king consort as it gave him no real power at all. This part is just speculation, but some say Mary took a new secret lover in James Hepburn, the 4th Earl of Bothwell. Historians speculate that together they plotted the death of Henry, Lord Darnley, who was found fallen from his bedroom window wearing nothing but a nightshirt, and he had been strangled. Queen Elizabeth implored Mary to investigate the death and to hold James, Earl of Bothwell for trial, but Mary refused and instead did nothing. Not long later, Mary was on a pleasant stroll through town when 600 men surrounded her and abducted her. These men belonged to James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell. And that night, James went into her room and they lay together. Was this a planned abduction or a brutal rape? We can only guess. Mary, Queen of Scots, went on to marry her captor, which further turned public opinion against her. She became with child shortly after. His name was James VI. He would later become King of Scotland and go on to reunite Scotland and England under one king. Mary would not see that day, however. When her son was just 1 year old, the noble lords of Scotland had had enough of their queen and turned on her. She fled from Scotland into the waiting arms of who she thought was her ally, Queen Elizabeth of England. Mary was wrong. At first, she was treated quite well, but as the years went on, her freedoms were restricted until she became only a prisoner. All the while writing letters that would go unanswered to Queen Elizabeth. Eventually, through a letter written by Mary's own hand, a plot was uncovered to kill Queen Elizabeth, and so Queen Mary of Scots was put to death for treason. This was the story of two powerful women and a rivalry that ended in tragedy. If you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week on Tuesday.